Hello and welcome to Freed Indeed Live. I'm your host, the director of Freed Indeed Ministries, Kevin J.N. Hughes, and today I have what I hope will be a pretty fun and interesting episode of Freed Indeed Live. Namely, it's going to be on the topic of the Son of Man. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat and I will answer them as I'm able. Also, if you are watching this pre recorded, feel free to post any questions you want to in the comments, and I will either get back to you in the comments or make a video responding to your questions. You can also send them to info@freedomdeedmin.org. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So we've had a series going for a while where we've been showing the Christian faith in not only the New Testament but also the Old Testament, showing really how Second Temple Jewish religion is clearly fulfilled in Christianity, and so showing Christianity to be the continuation, Orthodox Christianity in particular, to be the continuation of Old Testament religion. And how that continuity exists, but also why there are certain elements that receive fulfillment and what exactly that means and entails. So, so that's good. And so we've been doing that. And now this is going to be not only about Jesus, the Trinity, and other Orthodox Christian beliefs in the New Testament and the Old, but today we're going to be talking about the title of the Son of Man and why Jesus ascribes that title to himself and what exactly that means. But as always, before we get into that, you can support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and in doing so, you'll actually become a member and be able to take advantage of some member exclusives, like member exclusive book clubs. You'll get notified first when we drop new articles and things like that. So there's lots of great reasons to become a member. There's lots of great reasons to support us, and it's as little as $1 a month. So, that's practically nothing. Also, today I will be drawing very heavily from Father Stephen DeYoung's book, The Religion of the Apostles. So I've provided a link in the description where you can buy said book from our bookstore, and that's hopefully going to encourage you to buy the book, because this is one of my all-time favorite books, and I highly encourage everyone to read this book at least once, especially if you have any interest at all in apologetics. Not only if you're Orthodox, for anyone who has any interest at all in apologetics, I highly recommend this book, and especially if you happen to be Eastern Orthodox like me. So the title Son of Man is very interesting because it's actually one of the rare times where there's a thread that exists in all four Gospels very clearly. So Jesus uses this title most frequently to speak about his work and his life. And this title is found in the Old Testament throughout in several places, which we'll talk about. It's also found once in the book of Acts and many times in the four gospel accounts. And it's found very regularly in Second Temple literature, such as the book of Enoch, which again, we're going to be talking about on the show. So really excited to talk about that. But that I just thought those were some kind of fun facts to get us started. Now, Jesus obviously didn't make up this title for himself, and he didn't make up how he was using it either. As we read in Religion of the Apostles, page 26, quote, accordingly, the idea of a particular divine figure known as the Son of Man had formed within the Second Temple period, and many of Christ's references are incontrovertibly to said figure. End quote. So what Jesus is doing there is he's not just sort of making these random statements. He has a very intentional purpose, one which his audience would have picked up on. So that's a very important thing. So something in this title gets kind of lost in translation. Namely, in English, we say Son of Man, and we're not exactly carrying the full meaning of what is going on with the title, but Jesus's original audience would have actually picked up on that. So in order to understand that, we need to understand how it's used in the Old Testament, and we need to understand just a little bit about the Hebrew language. So I'll try to keep this simple, but because it's a little bit, I'm not some great Hebrew scholar or anything, but basically there's actually two different words for man in Hebrew. And in this particular context, when we talk about the Son of Man, we're not talking about the son of a man, but rather the son of man, like mankind. And we might even say son of Adam, like son of our forefather Adam. In Numbers chapter 23, verse 19, God actually says, God is not a man that he should lie, or the son of Adam that he should change his mind. So it's son of man, son of Adam, son of Adam. So it would be more accurately translated as son of Adam, but oftentimes we say son of man. So God is not a man that he, or a son of man that he should change his mind. I have included here this, I am the Lord, I do not change, from Malachi chapter 3, verse 6. And I include that not because that in particular talks about Son of Man, but because I'm linking it to here where it says that God doesn't change. But see, God is specifically saying that he doesn't change because he's not a son of Adam, Adam's race having become mortal, Adam's race being subject to change. So that is an interesting introduction to the idea of son of Adam, but let's dig a little bit deeper here. So to say son of Adam or son of man in Hebrew is actually an idiom, excuse me, it's actually an idiom that's not speaking of having an individual human father, and it's actually not even speaking exactly of the human race in general, although that's contained in it. Like I said, being part of mankind is contained in this idea, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. But it's actually about being a son of Adam, Adam being the progenitor of the human race. So to understand what that's talking about, we need to understand the fact that the term son is also idiomatic in the Hebrew language. So the term son, to be son, and in Israelite culture. So to be someone's son means that you reflect something about them, or you reflect a certain trait. So there's a positive example found in Scripture, which is Barnabas or Barnabas, which literally means the son of encouragement. Barnabas, son of encouragement. So obviously Barnabas was called this because he was such an encouraging person and such an encouraging figure in the apostolic church that they started to call him the son of encouragement, Barnabas. And then there's also negative examples found in Scripture. For example, the Antichrist and Judas are both referred to as sons of perdition. Well, and that's in John 17:12 and 2 Thessalonians 2:3. So if they're sons of perdition, that means that they adhere to or possess this certain trait that's tied with perdition. They're being tied in with the concept of perdition, just as Barnabas was tied in with the concept of encouragement. Barnabas is so encouraging that he is a son of encouragement. They are so far into perdition that they are sons of perdition. And so when Jesus is referred to as son of Adam, it's talking about him having a characteristic or trait or reflecting something about Adam, reflecting something about mankind being in the image and likeness of God, we might say. So if this was about literal physical descent from Adam, or even about literal physical human lineage for that matter, you could literally just say that someone was a man or was a human person. That would be sufficient to convey that reality. However, there's clearly something more meant in this context, since the very title Son of Man exists at all. It's obviously making reference to some kind of characteristic or trait that is being reflected here. So, in order to understand this, we have to go back into history a little bit, because in the Western Christian understanding, and even for some Orthodox Christians, but especially in the West, ever since St. Augustine, there has been a tendency in the West to view Adam as the bringer of sin. But this was not the tendency in Second Temple Judaism. Excuse me. So when Jesus says son of Adam, or son of Adam, son of man, he's not talking about being sinful, and that's not the characteristic or trait that Second Temple Jews would have understood him to be talking about, because the concept of original sin, the Augustinian concept of original sin, develops later. So we're not going to go on a big tangent about original sin here and now. I'm just going to say that that I think that's sufficient to maybe understand that in Second Temple Judaism, Adam was not so much associated with sin, he was more so associated with death. And then, so we might say that in Second Temple Judaism, Adam is seen as connected to human mortality rather than to human depravity. So, it was obviously Adam's sin that brought death into human experience, but from a Second Temple Jewish perspective, overall depravity in man was actually seen as resulting largely from other events in Genesis in addition to Adam's sin. So, for example, you have the slaying of Abel, the sin of the Watchers, the Tower of Babel incident. All of these are seen as significant fall experiences. But Adam sets the ball rolling by introducing death. And that's what St. Paul is sort of referencing when he talks about all mankind being subject to the fear of death as well. So as far as Adam and mortality goes, let's take a look here at some scripture. So there's within the New Testament, we have some references to this concept, because remember, the New Testament is not outside of Second Temple Jewish phronema. The New Testament is written from within the context of Second Temple Judaism, very early in Christian history. So, and all of the writers of the New Testament, with the exception of the evangelist Luke and possibly the evangelist Mark, with those two exceptions, all of the New Testament is written by people who were coming from Second Temple Judaism and were part of the nascent Christian community, Christian church. So first off, we see Adam associated with mortality in John chapter 8, verse 44, where we read that Satan was a murderer from the beginning, and Satan murdered human persons by convincing Adam to sin and fall. So Adam isn't the murderer, Satan is the murderer, but Adam is still the one who is being brought into association here with death. Then there's also in Romans chapter 5, 12 through 17, a contrast between Adam and Christ. And we're actually going to go ahead and read that because I think it's fundamentally important to understand what's going on here. So Romans 5, 12 through 17, we see a contrast between Adam and Christ. And in that contrast, you can see that that Adam is associated with death and Christ with life, and that association is coming from Second Temple Judaism and from the Old Testament itself, but is found here in the New Testament. So let's go ahead and read that together. I'll take myself off the screen so that if you happen to be watching visually, you can follow along with me. So we read, "Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men, because all have sinned. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam until Moses, even over those who had not sinned in the likeness of Adam, who is a type of him who was to come." So Adam is a type of him who was to come. So we see the contrast being introduced there between Adam and Christ. We also see that it was through Adam that sin entered the world, and through his sin, death entered the world, and then death spread to all men because all have sinned. And the law of sin is in the world, but sin is not imputed where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigns from Adam until Moses, even over those who have not sinned, in the likeness of the offense of Adam. But Adam was a type of him who was to come. So now we move on to verse 15, where we see, "But the free gift of Christ, but the free gift is not like the transgression. For if by the transgression of the one many died, much more by the grace of God and the gift by the grace of the one man, Jesus Christ, abound to the many. The gift is not like that which came through the one who sinned. For on the one hand, judgment arose from one transgression, resulting in condemnation. But on the other hand, the free gift arose from many transgressions, resulting in justification." Excuse me. "For if by the transgression of the one death reigned through the one, Much more, those who receive the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness will reign in life through the one, Jesus Christ. So again, we see this, what we're seeing here is this connection by way of contrast to Adam and Christ. Adam and Christ are, Adam is the one who, through his transgression, has brought about death in mankind, but Christ is the one who, through his righteousness and through uniting his divine nature to human nature, he has brought about a life, not death. So you can see here within the New Testament this reference to this idea of Adam and his association with mortality, but also Christ and his association with life. But this concept is rooted in the Hebrew scriptures themselves. So now we're going to look at some Old Testament examples of where we see this concept of Adam being united, being associated with mortality. And this is actually one of the ways that the phrase son of Adam is used pretty consistently throughout the Old Testament. For example, in Job 25, verse 6, how much less man that is a worm, and the son of man, which is a worm. So we see here that Job, in Job 25, verse 6, is being reminded of his frailty, his weakness, and his mortality it's being associated with this idea of son of man, the son of Adam. And Isaiah 51 verse 12 also says, I, even I, am he who comforts you. Who are you that you are afraid of a man who dies, and of the Son of Man who is made like the grass? Isaiah 51:12. So God is he who comforts us, and we don't have any reason to be afraid of the Son of Man who is made to be like the grass because of his mortality. So again, this association of Son of Man or Son of Adam, more specific, son of Adam, Son of Man, being associated with the idea of mortality. So, and not just mortality, but all of the accoutrement, you might say, of mortality. Human weakness, human frailty, human fragility, the things that accompany mortality in addition to mortality itself. All of that is associated to our relationship to Adam. The Psalms also talk about this. In Psalm 146:3, we read 145:3 if you're using the Septuagint. It says, put not your trust in princes, nor the sons of man, in whom there is no help. So again, we see this phrase, son of man. This isn't the title. That's going to come a little bit later. We're about to get there, but first, I'm just showing that there's this association between the phrase son of man, son of Adam, and mortality. Psalm 143, verse 3, or Psalm 144 in most Bibles, verse 3, it says, Lord, what is man that you take knowledge of him, or the Son of Man, the Son of Adam, that you make account of him? We also should note that the prophet Ezekiel is regularly referred to as Son of Man, as a reminder of the fact that he is in exile, so as a reminder of the weakness of the nation of Israel. So you have this concept of Son of Man throughout, and the term Son of Man is also used in Daniel with reference to the exile. But there's something else that happens in Daniel that's very interesting, and that's that we end up having this son of Adam or son of man figure, someone who is the son of man. And this is actually the son of man reference most commonly discussed in Second Temple literature. So the idea of Adam's association with mortality is important to the Son of Man figure because of this fascinating contrast, right? Because Adam introduces mortality into the human race, and that's one of the problems that the Messiah is going to deal with. So, in order for the Messiah to deal with this problem, there has to be this Son of Man who we're about to see is also the Messiah. But in Second Temple Judaism, that was still debated whether the Son of Man and the Messiah were, in fact, one and the same. We're going to see that they are, but I just wanted to note that. but you have to have this idea, this son of Adam, this son of man, who is divine and is taking on human mortality. That has to be part of redemption. So, and we should note that this son of man figure is the one specifically referenced in the Gospels. This is what Jesus is talking about when he says that he's the Son of Man, and we know that because of the context of how it's used. So let's examine this concept of Son of Man in Daniel. So first we see in Daniel 7, there's all these empires that would dominate the known world. And Daniel very accurately and very dramatically unfolds the history of what's going to happen for the rest of that time period. All of these empires would dominate the known world, would particularly dominate Israel. And then Daniel sees the God of Israel, the Most High God, Yahweh, enthroned among the divine council. And Yahweh passes judgment upon the empire or against the empires of the world. So he is sitting enthroned among the divine council, and he passes this judgment against the empires that have been reigning, and then he removes their authority. And the Greek word there in the Septuagint for when he removes their authority is he removes their exousia. That Greek word is also what's used in the New Testament when Jesus says, all power in heaven and earth has been given to me. It's all exousia has been given to me. So in Daniel 7:12, all of the exousia is removed from the empires of the world. And then that's when we're introduced to the Son of Man, or one like the Son of Man, who comes before the Ancient of Days, riding on a cloud, and all power and authority, all exousia, is given to him. So again, Jesus obviously associates himself with this figure because when he's giving the apostles their charge, he says that all power and authority, all exousia, has been given to me. So, but we'll look at that more in a moment. For now, it's important to note two things. First, the Son of Man is obviously a human person, because otherwise, I know we just got through talking about the fact that the Son of Man isn't exclusively a human person, that there's more to the title than that, but Nevertheless, there isn't less to the title than that. He obviously is a human person. But the second detail is perhaps less obvious, and that is that he's riding on the clouds. Riding on the clouds. So the cloud rider, well, in ancient Near Eastern culture, the term cloud rider, or one riding on the clouds, was always a term for deity. And this, if you look at depictions of Zeus, if you look at depictions of Baal, that this is kind of their thing. They ride on the clouds. Well, for obvious reasons, the ancient Israelites only ever spoke of Yahweh as the one who rides on the clouds. For example, in Psalm 104, verses 3 and 4, or 103, verses 3 and 4, in the Septuagint, which is read at every Orthodox Vespers service, we read of God as the cloud rider. And in Isaiah 19, verse 1, as well, we read of God as the cloud rider. And in fact, in both of those passages, it is ascribed that God's very glory is that he is the cloud rider. So this is a very big deal. You wouldn't talk about just some random mortal man as a cloud rider. It was in fact, this was in fact a two-sided meaning that would have been very readily apparent to the original audience of Daniel, and indeed to the original audience of our Lord Jesus Christ in his speaking as well. So this Son of Man clearly is a divine figure who is therefore a hypostasis or person of Yahweh. Remember, we already talked about the fact in previous discussions that the ancient Israelites had an at least binitarian view, if not Trinitarian. In fact, it was debated whether it should be binitarian or Trinitarian, but all Second Temple Jews agreed that there were at least two hypostases of God. And they debated whether, basically the debate was because in the Old Testament they also found reference to this Spirit of Yahweh, the Spirit of God. And there was a debate whether the Spirit of God was a separate hypostasis, a separate person of the divine, or was this just another name for the Son figure, the Son of Yahweh? So that was a debate in Second Temple Judaism, and it was a debate that was resolved by Christianity because we're Trinitarian. So if you've been following us for a while, you already knew that. If you haven't, go back and watch those previous episodes. And I'll throw in a little plug that we do have a couple of Patreon exclusives as well. For example, we have one called The Wisdom of God, in which I go through showing how the wisdom of God in the Old Testament, showing this concept of the wisdom of God as a person in the Old Testament, because that's what he is. When we talk about the wisdom of God, it's actually a person of the divine. And whether or not you recognize Enoch as canon is irrelevant, so please don't get distracted on this point. But first, Enoch chapter 48, verses 2 through 10 clearly demonstrates that many Second Temple Jews linked the Son of Man figure to the Messiah who was to come. And that's relevant whether or not you recognize Enoch as canon, because it still shows that this was the belief that was at least present, if not prevalent, in Second Temple Judaism. So let's go ahead and read 1 Enoch 48, 2 through 10. I'm going to take myself off the screen again. So 1 Enoch 48, 2 through 10. In that hour was the Son of Man named before the Lord of Spirits, and his name in the presence of the Ancient of Days. Before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of heaven were formed, his name was invoked in the presence of the Lord of Spirits. So, again, I just want to point out that it's very clear that the author of the book of Enoch obviously believes, which whether or not you believe that Enoch actually handed down the book of Enoch or not is again irrelevant to this point. The point here is that in Second Temple Judaism, the belief that that the Messiah was, or I should say that the Son of Man, who we're going to see as the Messiah, but the Son of Man is not a created being, because before creation, before the stars of the heaven were formed, his name was invoked in the presence of the Lord of Spirits. So he pre-exists, you might say, creation. So before the stars of heaven were formed, his name was invoked in the presence of the Lord of Spirits. A staff shall, this is actually my favorite passage, a staff shall he be for the righteous and the holy to lean upon without falling. And he shall be the light of the nations, and he shall be the hope of those whose hearts are troubled, and all who dwell on the earth shall fall down and worship before him, and shall bless and glorify him, and sing praises to the name of the Lord of Spirits. Therefore the elect and the concealed one existed in his presence before the world was created and forever. In his presence he existed and revealed to the saints and to the righteous the wisdom of the Lord of Spirits. For he has preserved the lot of the righteous, because they have hated and rejected this world of iniquity, and have detested all its works and ways, in the name of the Lord of Spirits. For in his name shall they be preserved, and his will shall be their life. In those days shall the kings of the earth and the mighty men who have gained the world by their achievements become humble in countenance. For in the day of their anxiety and trouble, their souls shall not be saved, and they shall be in subjection to those whom I have chosen. I will cast them like hay into the fire, and like lead into the water. Thus shall they burn in the presence of the righteous, and sink in the presence of the holy, nor shall a tenth part of them be found. But in the day of their trouble, the world shall obtain tranquility. So, again, I realize that there's kind of this apocalyptic thing here, which is important in and of itself. But again, the Book of Enoch is very clear here that this Son of Man is not part of creation. He's a hypostasis of Yahweh. He was with the Lord of Spirits before the creation of the world. In some sense, he is a hypostasis of the very Lord of Spirits. So, a staff shall he be for the righteous and the holy to lean upon without falling, and he shall be the light of the nations. He shall be the hope of those whose hearts are troubled, and all who dwell on earth shall fall down and worship before him, and will praise and bless him, and sing with praise the name of the Lord of Spirits. So this elect one, who in Enoch's time is the concealed one, will no longer be concealed, because he is going to reveal himself and reveal the Lord of Spirits, and the wisdom of the Lord of spirits to all. So that's what's going on there. Obviously, the one who this is talking about is the Messiah, because this is a prophecy concerning the Messiah. It's a messianic vision, and this Messiah is going forth to proclaim the name of Yahweh to the nations. He's bringing the name of the Lord of spirits to the people and revealing to them what is the will of the Lord of spirits, because he is not part of creation, but he enters into it. So all of that is seen here. I'll make a quick note. In the book of Enoch, the Son of Man is clearly connected to the Messiah, but is also clearly a divine figure, since, as we just saw in the end there, he's actually worshipped. Remember, it says here, for in the day of their anxiety, I went to the wrong part. So, therefore the elect and the concealed one existed in his presence before the world was created and forever. So he's uncreated. He's existed in his presence forever. In his presence he existed and has revealed to the saints and to the righteous the wisdom of the Lord of spirits, for he has preserved the lot of the righteous, because they have hated and rejected this world of iniquity and have deserted all of its ways in the name of the Lord of spirits. For in his name shall they be preserved, and his will shall be their life. In those days shall the kings of the earth and the mighty men who have gained. So they become humble in their countenance. But notice that it's this Son of Man figure that we're talking about. So the Son of Man is with the Lord of spirits, and before the creation of the world. He's not a created being. He proceeds directly he is begotten directly from the Lord of spirits, we might say. And he is the hope of those whose hearts are troubled and who dwell on earth. So obviously, this is being connected to the Son of Man figure, because he's the one who receives that exousia from the nations, but he's also worshipped, and he's also pre-incarnate. Clearly, he is this divine figure who is also the Son of Man, which is perfectly fulfilled in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. And again, I just want to stress that if you don't believe Enoch is scriptural, you don't have to in order to see what this means regarding Second Temple religion, since if you don't believe Enoch was written by Enoch, then you believe it was written by Second Temple Jews. Either way, it shows what Second Temple Jews were believing. So in Mark 14, something happens that ties all of this together. So in Mark 14, Jesus is on trial before Caiaphas, and he's asked if he is the Messiah. And Jesus has not been responding to anyone's accusations up to this point. And then Caiaphas directly asks him if he's the Messiah. So he answers by saying, I am, which is important in and of itself that he says, I am. He doesn't say I am the Messiah. He says, I am, ego eimi. So that's another I am passage, the ego eimi. But then he identifies himself with the Son of Man, whom Caiaphas will see in the clouds of heaven. So this is Mark 14, 61 and 62. So I realize that, Muslims will try to say, well, he says I am, but that doesn't mean anything. He's just saying I am the Messiah. But he's not saying that he's God. Well, he does say that he's the Son of Man and that he comes in the clouds of heaven, which we've just seen is speaking about divinity. It's speaking about deity. And Caiaphas's extreme reaction to what Jesus says demonstrates that Caiaphas knows exactly what Jesus is saying, first of all. And it also shows that for Caiaphas and for everyone present, it is taken for granted that the Son of Man figure from the book of Daniel is a divine hypostasis. Because if this were not the case, then claiming to be the Son of Man would not inherently be associated with blasphemy. So the very fact that it is means that obviously Caiaphas and everyone present sees the Son of Man as being a divine figure. So of particular importance is the fact that this is actually a very unique messianic title. In past videos, we've explored how the Old Testament testifies to the full divinity of the second person of the Godhead. We've seen, the wisdom of God. We've seen all these different things and we've shown how in the New Testament we see Jesus Christ as being fully God and fully man. But here, the title of the Son of Man, or Son of Adam, is very unique because in this moment, in this title, Jesus is portrayed both as divine and as having a human nature. Because to be the Son of Man, one must be a Son of Man. Or to put it another way, to be the Son of Man, one must in fact be a man. You can't, an ethereal being out there couldn't be the Son of Man because that being isn't a man. So Jesus has to become man in order to fulfill the prophecy concerning the Son of Man, and he has to become a literal son of Adam in order to become the second Adam. That this is the way in which it must be. And this is exactly what we see happening now. In Matthew 28:18, remember I made a big deal about that exousia before. Well, in Matthew 28:18, Jesus says, "All authority, exousia, in heaven and earth has been given to me." So remember that in Daniel's prophecy concerning the Son of Man, the Son of Man frames the work of Christ's first and second advent clearly, because you'll recall that in that prophecy he says that the Son of Man, that Yahweh takes the exousia from the nations, particularly from the empires, and gives it to this Son of Man figure, and then this Son of Man establishes his kingdom. So I say that this frames Christ's first and second advent because the prophecy also states that the nations will continue to exist for a time, but they have already been judged. Well, the kingdom of Christ is already established and spreading, and our job is to spread that kingdom. Our job is to go forth into all the earth and bring people into the kingdom of Christ through his church. So that's our job in this. And Christ has already established his kingdom. Therefore, the nations of this world already face their judgment. They have already been judged and found wanting. And Christ has now received all authority on heaven and earth. And it is because of that that we call people to the gospel. So that is where we're going to leave off. Make sure to send this to your friends so that they too can be freed indeed, as always, by the blood of Jesus Christ. Also, please like, comment, share, hit that subscribe button, and jingle that bell icon so that you can see everything that we're doing. And I hope that you are deeply blessed by this. Again, share it with your friends. God bless.